None of these books that I'm seeing here.
Am I going to be staring at Nick on that screen all freaking? Yeah. Sorry. I just want to make sure that, every time I look up, I'm not staring at Nick. I have him in my peripheral.
Not so bad.
It's bad enough.
I stare at it all the time.
I know. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure you're not happy with it.
There are things. There are things.
All right. Welcome to Nick's Right Podcast, where Nick is always right. Old millennial Gen Xer.
Gen X.
I'm going to have to get used to that. We're going to go ahead straight into our sponsors, and then we're going to get to our guest right after we pray. Patriot Mobile, patriotmobile.com/NRP, or patriotmobile.com. Put in the code NRP for our free month. Best cell phone service out there. I'm not just saying that because they are patriotic. I'm saying that because they are. Live Audio, the headphones we're wearing, LIVV, not LIVE, LIVV Audio. Did I do something? Okay, LIVV Audio. I did something wrong. Hang on. No, it's my headphones are coming off of the little thing here, and
you got them on right. Sometimes you put them on wrong, Nick.
Yeah, I got them on right, Nick. That's not the question. It's I'm trying to get it to where. Because whenever you move it, it kind of goes in and out. There we go. Let me just see if that'll work for me all night. LIVV Audio. LIVVaudio.com / I'm sorry, not / but LIVVaudio.com. Put in the code NRP for a 15% discount for these premium headphones. The problem I'm having is not with the headphones. It's actually with the cord that I'm plugging up to. So I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea there.
No, these headphones are awesome. So
these are amazing headphones. And the last thing, we want to plug our merch. So you see the hat that I'm wearing, Christ is King. We got a Deus Vult hat over here for Nick. Pull the camera to you. Pull the camera to you.
Pull the camera to me.
You have to talk for it to come to you.
Oh, that's right. When you say pull it, I thought maybe you meant pull it. Deus Vult. This is our hat in our merch store. If you're a Christian and you believe that we are in a war against evil, which we constantly are, but it's coming to our back door. Deus Vult is the Christian battle cry that the Templars used in the First Crusades against the marauding, invading Muslims and kicked them promptly back to where they belong out of Europe. So Deus Vult, baby, get your hat.
And then last but not least, our newest shirt where it says, "Yes, I'm single. No, I'm not gay. And yes, I love Jesus." You can get all of these at Nick's Right Podcast merch.myshopify.com, or you can go to our Instagram page and it's on our highlights. Let's pray and then introduce our guest. Lord Jesus, thank you for this time. Thank you for everything that we are able to do. Thank you for the stuff that you're setting up for the future. Thank you for the ability to collaborate. Thank you for the ability just to be able to breathe. Thank you for saving us. Thank you for dying for us. Thank you for rising again on the third day. Give us a lot of good conversation, and may all of this go viral for your name and your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
We are going to introduce, and I apologize, Aaron. I don't think I've ever learned your last name.
O'Loughlin.
Aaron O'Loughlin. And
it's not a secret, is it?
No.
No, okay.
No, that's not it. Well, is it an alias?
No.
Okay.
It's my married name.
Real.
It's your married name. Okay.
Married name.
So Aaron O'Loughlin. Aaron is ex-CIA. Mm-hmm. And she was in government intelligence. We're not going to talk about anything she did while she was in the CIA. No, we're not going to do that. But we will talk about stuff that she's uncovered since then. Yeah, and we're also going to talk a lot about Islam because she understands the threat that is at our doorstep. And more pastors, I had a conversation with a pastor today, more and more pastors are waking up to what is in our backyard. So
I hope so.
Yeah. And you're going to give us a very sombering account of everything that can you talk about stuff that you experienced with them overseas?
Absolutely. So I can talk about generalities. And the thing is, I'm just not going to get into details.
Okay.
And you'll be bored anyways, probably.
I don't think so. But
it's a good dovetail into what I found in the private sector. So it is important to talk about the 10 years I spent in the agency and then how it affected and how it helps what I do now.
Great. So you spent 10 years in the agency, and it was with the CIA.
Yes, it was. I was a operations officer.
Was it with like Islamic affairs or?
I don't know what that is, but
I mean, as opposed to like South America or.
Oh, you mean the geographic regions?
Sure, yeah.
No,
I mean,
I was a counterterrorism officer, so I belonged to the Counterterrorism Center, CTC, for several years. But out of the seven years I was in operations, and I was in for 10. So about 2.5 years or so, I was a background investigator for current agency employees, where I had to be the annoying one going on the neighbors' doors and saying, "Hi, I work for DOD, and I'm here to talk to you about your neighbor," and all that. And that was boring. And I got
that doesn't sound boring. That sounds exciting.
It was so boring. And so I luckily met someone who I was doing her background, and she was a chief of station going out overseas, and she said, "I want you as an operations officer," and she changed my life. And so I got into the program, and I was able to take about a year and a half of training. And then I was set out onto the path. And so I actually ended up in Southeast Asia first after I graduated. But I graduated right after 9/11. I went in, right after 9/11. So I was accepted into the program as a background investigator, current agency staff employee, into the CST program, which is a clandestine service trainee program. And I had to wait because of the classes, class sizes and bureaucracy, paperwork. Well, guess what happened in between my acceptance and my starting on November 2001?
Oh, 9/11. Yeah, because November. Yeah.
The big event.
That was right before my 19th birthday. No. Yeah. That was right before my 19th birthday.
I'm older than you.
Yeah. I remember because whenever 9/11 happened, that was my freshman year in college. Like I was right out of high school. And I remember that happening. I remember what I was doing. I remember I was taking a nap in between classes, and then the next class I went to, everyone was just at awe. And then I heard it as I turned on the radio, because, we still did radio back then. Turned on the radio, and I heard everything going on, and I was like, what just happened?
Well, I'll tell the 9/11 story for me. So I was actually background investigator, like I said, and I was supposed to be in the Pentagon, 3rd floor Army side, the morning of 9/11.
You were supposed to be, but you weren't, because that's what was hit, right? Oh.
I wasn't. So our background investigators were all over the place, all over Northern Virginia, D.C., Southern Maryland. Some even had to go into West Virginia for certain things. Our offices were our cars. And so I happened to be in the office several months before then, pulling for cases. And I was just doing some paperwork, some reimbursements, some report writing, things like that. Well, my team leader sees me and he said, "Hey, you're standing here. You'll do." "Oh, okay, I'll do." And he pulls me in and he says, "I need you to do a project for me. And it's going to be in the next couple of months. It's voice recognition software. A lot of your background investigators are spending way too much time typing and maybe and not enough getting the reports in, right?" And then, voice recognition. Okay, I'm not a tech person, but okay. And so I spent a couple months, about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, working on and being the guinea pig for this voice recognition software. And so the presentation that I was set to give kept getting changed. A couple days here, a couple days there. And finally, like on the third time, they set, finally, we're going to get everybody into the Tyson's Corner building, our office, our outbuilding, on September 11. Well, I had an appointment with a lieutenant colonel who was the Army National Guard line of command for an agency employee who was doing National Guard work. And so I needed to go talk to his military counterparts for his, second job, which was the Guard. And so we did that quite frequently. And so the third time was the charm, and I called him on September 10th, 2001. I said, "I'm so sorry to do this to you again. I gotta rearrange again. I swear to you, I'll make it up to you, sir." And I couldn't make it the next morning. But I don't think he made it, because I never heard anything after that.
Oh, so he's no longer with us?
I don't think so. I didn't check up because I just didn't want to know, but it was right there.
So, but this is why you were in the agency.
Well, not why. I was in already.
While, yeah. While you were in the agency, and you're saying this was this kind of like your boss? This is your boss you're talking about?
My boss? No, I was just going to meet a gentleman who was lieutenant colonel for a gentleman who I was doing his background investigation for.
Oh, okay.
So I just needed to make that appointment to get that case done so I can move on to the next case. And so I couldn't make that appointment because I was in a Tyson's Corner building getting ready to tell our entire background investigations force, here's what we found. My colleague Alan and I actually stood there and were saying, okay, we're going to get ready to have all of our background investigators learn about what we've figured out about the bugs, the kinks, and the little presentation we're going to give. And I had gone upstairs to get coffee, and as I'm standing there paying the cashier at the coffee, and I look up and there's a TV right there, and the second plane had gone in just at that moment. And they just caught it. And all I kept thinking was, what a horrible accident. That's horrific.
Yeah.
And I paid for my coffee. I said, well, that's really strange. How could someone not see a building Yeah,
Wow.
I can't fly. I'm not a pilot, so I don't know.
Right.
And so I go, wow, this is weird. I turn around, and the small cafe that we had in that outbuilding, I mean, everyone was just losing their minds. They were just completely sprinting back to their desks. I mean, I could feel the wind passing by. People were running. And what is going on here? And people were saying things like Bin Laden, Osama Bin Laden. They were saying things like Al Qaeda. I didn't know those words.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know.
You weren't in that atmosphere.
No,
okay.
not at all. And I was real young. And so I went downstairs to the, they called it the theater auditorium that we had. And then I said, well, something really weird just happened. I saw upstairs. And then my buddy Alan goes, what? And next thing you know, the two doors for the auditorium area just burst open. And our chief, that's the boss of the investigations division, he had come on in, striding in, telling us that there had been a plane down in Pennsylvania and that the Pentagon had been hit. And the towers, a second tower had gone down. I mean, he told us everything. And he literally said, we're under attack.
So
Wow.
the Pentagon got hit before or after the second building?
I believe so, or right around the same time.
Right around the same
So the
time.
Pentagon was
So
you were at
it was the third one in line when it comes to being hit. So
you kept calling it the Tyson's Corner building. I assume that's like off-site from the Pentagon, which is
it's an agency building. There's agency buildings all over the place.
Agency building.
Yeah.
Was this in D.C.?
In Northern Virginia.
Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we were then told, go home.
Oh, wow.
Just go home. And you do not come back to any building until you're told to. Okay.
Dang.
But we had government-plated cars because I was a background investigator. And it would take normally about 12 minutes, 9 to 12 minutes to get from my apartment to the building. And it took 4.5 to 5 hours.
What? Because of the
It's
traffic?
a parking lot.
Because of the traffic.
Yeah.
Because everyone was losing their minds. The agency headquarters was being evacuated. I immediately went to a green phone. Green phone is a secure line. My mom worked in the headquarters. We had no idea what was happening at headquarters. And so I immediately get on the green line and I dial her 5 digits and she immediately picks up and she says, Aaron. And I said, yeah. And I could hear just chaos in the background. And she said, we're being evacuated. You're okay? I said, I'm okay. And she said, call me when you get home. We don't know what's going on. We're being evacuated right now. And I said, okay. And about 5 or so hours later, I was finally home.
Wow.
But the thing was, there is an off ramp to try and get home. And we sat there forever. And
just at that off ramp.
Yeah. I mean, I sat there in 66 for a very long time too. And on that off ramp, I could see and smell the fire. I could see the smoke and smell it. And it was
From the Pentagon?
Yeah.
No.
That's how close we were. Yeah.
Dang.
And not only that, but people were starting to stream onto the highway. Some people had some blood on their head, on their arms, their clothes, things like that. Other people were just shell shocked, walking around, and the strangers were bringing other strangers into their car to just get them to calm down, or maybe triage. Are they hurt? Things like that. I was too afraid to bring someone in my car because we didn't know what to expect.
You didn't know who it was either. Wow.
No. And I'm sitting there in the car going, if I bring someone in and I get targeted because of government plate, because we don't know if this is going to be guerrilla warfare next.
Yep.
I mean, I'm guilty for having that person killed because they're in my car.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I could think of.
Okay.
Then I'm sitting in there and the radio comes on. I'm listening to the radio going, oh my gosh, they're complete coverage of what's going on in New York, the coverage in the Pentagon. They're going back and forth. And the people were very professional, as if you can remember. They kept using that word Bin Laden. I had no idea what that was.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what the word jihad was. I had no idea why they hated us. I had no clue. None whatsoever. They just announced that I think the third tower, I could be wrong on that one, but another tower next to the FBI building had gone down. And I thought, wow, this is it.
Wait.
Or another building had gone down or something like that.
Next to the 2 towers?
Or it might have been the second tower. The second full tower had gone down.
Oh, okay.
Something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
When they collapsed, they took buildings down with them. I'm wondering if it wasn't one of those.
I think it was, I'm a little hazy on the details right now because it's been so long.
Sure, yeah.
Sorry about
So
that.
wait, when it comes to you being in the CIA, you're saying this was your inception into the CIA?
Yeah, well, kind of. I mean,
It was in the beginting.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
also a college student in the agency too, so I sort of grew up in the building.
Oh, okay.
I was a summer employee, so I was there since I was 18. So it didn't really bother me to be there. Again,
I guess you could say the start of your career,
Yeah.
was the inception of your career was 9/11.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I literally said, I can't be a normal case officer. I got to go and figure out why they hate us.
Yeah.
I got to help get revenge for whatever it is that had just happened to us. And
Right.
I'm a natural redhead, even though my daughter has taken a lot of the natural red out and I have to buy it now. But I've still got the fire. And I said, screw this. I'm going where the action is. And I was single at the time. And I said, that's exactly what's going to happen. And so I went to a class and actually it wasn't just a year of training. It was more like almost 2 years. And so then I ended up going to Southeast Asia, and the chief's wife looked at me and she goes, she literally said to me, you have no business being a regular case officer. And I thought that she was angry with me. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Did I do something wrong? And she said, no, I think that you'd be really good as a counterterrorism officer. And I said, well, tell me what that means. And so she did. And she said, can you memorize these names? They're all Abus and Bins and Mohammeds and all that stuff. And I said, I guess I can. And she gave me a couple books to start reading up on, and I did. And I just got really jazzed to know the history of what Southeast Asia, the part that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed played, how he used a lot of the Southeast Asian countries to funnel money, to
when you say
to travel to
when
coordinate.
You say Southeast Asia, just to avoid confusion, you're talking about India, Pakistan, or
Further east.
Oh, further east.
So Iraq,
No,
Afghanistan.
that's
That's
west.
west.
Oh,
so
sorry.
you're talking
I don't know my
Asia,
geology that
Asia.
well.
Indonesia,
Just below
and-
China. Yeah.
Okay.
Stuff like that. I was only there for a little bit. Then after that, I said, I can't be a regular case officer, which means operations officer. And I said, I really want to go CT. Reached out to a friend of mine, and he said, hey, I've got a couple spots here. And so I ended up moving over to Counterterrorism Center.
And that
Wow.
was okay. So I'm confused. With when you went to
This happens
counterterrorism, you got out of
He gets confused. It happens often. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah. I just asked for clarity. That's all. I just want clarity. So you were in Southeast Asia, and then you decided to be counterterrorist, and I'm assuming they took you where? To the Middle East somewhere, or
Yeah. So I had to sit in Northern Virginia for a while just to kind of, get my teeth cut on certain targeting efforts. And I was a targeter for a while, even though I was a certified operations officer. I didn't mind. I'm from Northern Virginia. I didn't care about staying longer. I didn't care about working the desk.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot about, I was put on the Afghan desk. And so I was able to go in and out of Afghanistan for almost 9 months.
Is that whenever we talked to Carl Higbee? Is that where you were whenever he said that he worked in with the SEALs, and then he called you Squints? Like
Yeah.
And so was it in that area
Yes.
that you're talking about in Afghanistan? Okay.
Sorry, I had to think for a second about who the heck that was. Yes,
Yeah.
now it's coming
Carl
back
Higbee,
to me. That was Iraq.
he's an anchor for Newsmax.
Yes,
but he's
that's
an
right.
ex-SEAL,
Yes.
and he's the one that actually broke the story about Epic City in Plano.
really?
He and I were talking about Iraq.
Interesting.
Yes. Okay. But the story you just told was out of Afghanistan.
Afghanistan first. That was my first experience in counterterrorism. And I landed on the ground and I said, I have to have more than this. I have to have more of this. And because the mission was so great. The mission was, we know what we're doing. We know how we're going to go about getting these guys. And we know that the mission is just.
Okay.
They were there planning over 300 training camps in Afghanistan. Planning, working, exercising, drilling, reading about us, just to kill us.
You're not talking about, this is not U.S. force.
Pre 9/11. This is Al Qaeda forces.
This is Al Qaeda forces that are this organized.
Yeah.
Wow.
300 of them before 9/11, training on how to kill us.
On how to kill us, yeah.
And then 9/11 happens as a part of their plan. What was that, like a kickoff to their strategy? Or?
Yeah, it's part of the strategy. It's part of the world domination strategy. I sound like Pinky in the Brain as I say that. But
That's one of my favorites.
Yes.
Honestly, that's what Islam is, though. It's kind of a very Pinky in the Brain type of thing of just taking over.
it is.
Yeah.
And actually, I brought books to show everyone. So
Great
this book,
segue.
I know, right? Isn't that great? This book is Ghost Wars, and this is a huge recommendation to anyone who wants to know about I know it's huge. I mean, it's
probably a good read.
It's well worth it.
Yeah.
Investigative journalist Steve Call wrote The Road to 9/11. This is Ghost Wars is The Road to 9/11. It's pretty dry. I will admit it's dry. And I actually went to Vegas on a vacation with my best friend at the time, and she was going to go to Iraq when I was going to Afghanistan. We're sitting side by side at the pool with this book in our hand going, oh my God, did you just read that? I have no idea what that said. We have to go back and read the same thing. But it's pretty dry.
It takes a certain mind, I guess.
It does. You have to put some effort into it. But once you push past that first part of the effort, it really lays down the foundation of what they did, the tradecraft they used, Al Qaeda used, the signal. So the signal for the hijackers, you might have already heard this. Have you heard about what the signal was?
No.
During their plane flight?
Wait, when you say signal, the signal they used
get
when
on
they
the
were
plane. to tell them to get on the plane. That the attack should be happening.
I have not heard of that.
It's open source, so I'm not saying anything classified. So it's out there. Bin Laden had quite the tradecraft skills. Al-Qaeda knows exactly how they used body doubles for him because, Pakistan was out to get him. There was all these forces. Us were trying to find him. And so he was a wanted man, obviously. And they knew how to keep him scurried about like a little cockroach, get him out of the light and get him safe and do all sorts of things to keep themselves safe. But pre 9/11, they also had tradecraft. And they had warlords coming after them. They had skirmishes all around, all sorts of things.
Well, it sucked to be one of his body doubles.
Right?
I mean, they're putting, that's like a food taster.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was really hard to get next to him. And so what these guys did was, it was hard to get next to him as well as the opposition, Ahmad Shah Massoud.
The opposition to Osama.
On Afghan soil. Fighting for the Afghan people. Ahmad Shah Massoud.
Was Ahmad a good
guy?
He was a good guy for us.
Good Mujahideen. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And for the people, his people.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Was he Muslim?
Mujahideen from.
He was Muslim and he was a good guy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of them.
Did you
lots of them.
Did you ever watch Rambo 3? He fought with the Mujahideen against the Russians.
Okay, all right.
That's when people want to, conspiracy theory time, when people want to say Bin Laden was paid by the CIA and we trained him and blah, blah, blah. Well, okay. So much more to this.
Right.
He volunteered. He left Saudi, he left Khartoum and all that stuff, and he came to Afghanistan in order to get trained by us and the Pakistanis to fight the Russians.
Yeah.
He was just another soldier.
But this is before, this is before we knew him.
Yeah,
okay.
80s and 90s. And so well before he was who he was at that time. So he got trained by us. So people like Michael Moore use that little tidbit and they say things like, we trained him, blah, blah, blah stuff. Yeah. Well, you're partially true. It's partially right. Mm-hmm. But we were fighting the Russians.
But it's intellectual dishonesty is what it is.
Hang on.
Absolutely.
Who's Michael Moore?
Michael Moore
Fahrenheit
is
9/11.
I don't know who that is.
He's
you're lucky.
Yeah, you're lucky.
Okay.
I tried to watch one of his documentaries once, and I don't think I got all the way through it. But he was that a big, heavy-set documentarian, kind of sloppy looking, who's far left progressive.
I only watch good documentaries.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
We don't need to talk about him.
Yeah, okay.
Something's off there. But so Fahrenheit 9/11 was a big, we trained him, we gave him money, we did this, we created him. We also created a lot of other very good Mujahideen that fought with us side by side with our money and our guns in order to get the Russians out of their country. Okay. The problem was, and Charlie Wilson's war actually talks about this extensively.
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks.
Love that. Love that.
Charlie Wilson.
I love the shot of what's her name walking down the stairs dressed in his little shirt. But keep going. Keep talking.
Charlie Wilson did
different subject matter. Same movie.
He did a really good job with bringing attention to what was going on in Afghanistan at that time, with the Russians and how the Pakistanis were trying to help, and they weren't doing a very good job and all that, and they weren't letting a lot of the Afghan refugees across the border, and it was just a mess. And so he brought a lot of really good attention to it. The problem was that we just picked up and left, or as soon as the Russians left, the last Russian, and then what do you know? There's a power vacuum. What happens in a power vacuum?
It's a free-for-all.
It's a free-for-all. Yeah. And that's where we had the creation of the Taliban, because we just gave up and we just left. We didn't reconstruct. We didn't do nation building. We didn't do any of that.
And when was that?
That was in the 90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it was 89 was the very last, official Russian that left.
Yeah.
And then right after that, on horseback and on cars and jeeps and whatever, it was the Taliban come swooping in, because they're all foreign fighters.
Yeah.
They'd all come in from everywhere, mostly Saudi, to say, we're going to take this for Islam. We're going to take this and institute not just Sharia, but the most extreme of Sharia.
Yeah.
And now we're right back.
Isn't all
those
Sharia
people
extreme?
are right back. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
See, it's always politics. It sounds like if it was up to the military, I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, you probably know better than I do about this, we haven't lost a war ever militarily. It's politics.
I was never military.
So. Well, okay, but military history would suggest, Vietnam, the Charlie Wilson's event.
I thought we lost Vietnam. Isn't that what everybody says?
Well, no, he's saying that we lost it because of politics. Because of military force.
Militarily, we
absolutely.
wiped them.
Absolutely. Yeah,
so it's always politics, it seems to me, that loses wars. When militarily, man, no one's going to. We have won every war.
That comes down to leadership, and that's why
100%.
Like when it comes to the conflicts that Trump has been in right now, he goes in, he takes care of business, and he leaves. Now he's still in a debacle with Iran, but he's already done more than any other president.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's always going to be a quote debacle in Iran. That's what he walked into.
Yeah.
But no one else would be able to take them on. So the most success that I ever had, and as a female and in Muslim countries, is when I sat across the table from them in these multiple countries, and they knew exactly who I was, who I worked for. I wanted to work with liaison, and that's what it's called, to work with a host country's foreign intel service. I really enjoyed that. I just wanted to get the bad guy. I didn't care about taking their sources. I didn't care about anything else. I said, are they gone? Are they eliminated, either in our custody or your custody or Allah's custody? I don't care. I don't care.
We say Ali here.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not the Quran, it's the Karen.
Karen, yes, I noticed that.
So when you're in that moment where you experienced most of your success and apparently joy on the job, what did that look like?
So I didn't finish. So
okay,
that's perfect. As a perfect follow-up answer to it, the success looked like I played the diplomatic game. I did the whole, 3 cups of tea. We did the whole niceties. I explained who I was. I gave the respect that any other human deserves. And then I got it back, sort of, that sort of thing. But then when I wasn't getting it back, I finally, after multiple meetings, I realized, okay. And I asked my boss, that might be a good idea. We could play good cop, bad cop.
Oh.
And I said, ooh, give me good bad cop. Can I be bad cop? She said, I need you to be bad cop. So I started realizing that I not just started realizing, I realized that moment right then and there when I'd asked for what I needed right then, and they were still going to play around with me, very flowery language, very flattery, very this and that, and I still walk out empty-handed, and they still got their money.
Yep.
It was so annoying to me. So I finally just said, you know what, no more. And I just put my papers on the table, and I said, you get nothing from me. You get nothing.
This is a conversation. This is a conversation between you and the other countries.
Yes.
And these other countries are Islamic countries.
Yes.
Oh.
And they're heads of their intel services.
Yeah.
And my voice got loud, and I said, "No, you get nothing."
Oh gosh!
And it wasn't until I showed.
Excited.
I know, man. This is like movie
I know.
stuff.
Let's just start writing it down.
It wasn't until I showed a backbone that they respected me, and literally, multiple times, I got, "Oh, there she is. Okay, now we'll play."
Wow. Wow.
What?
Okay.
And so that's what I see playing out on the world stage. They only respect someone strong.
Yep.
They only respect someone who says, we'll blow you off the map. Because guess what? You say you're going to blow us off the map constantly. You say you're going to blow Israel off the map every single hour of every single day.
Yeah.
So I'm just matching your energy.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's what works.
Wow. Okay.
And that's so all of this was learned a year after a year of training. And then you probably learned that in like 5 minutes.
Well, yeah, almost 2 years of training, and then that they did not teach me to do that. I was just so frustrated that I didn't know what else to do. I had done all the things I was told to do. I did played nice.
They call that on the job.
You observed how they were treating you, and then you're like, you know what? Let's just fight fire with fire.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's whenever they started to respect you.
Yeah, and then when I went to Iraq, and I said to them flat out, said I've worked with the Afghans, I've worked with the Pakistanis, I'm coming in to work with you. You can mess with me all you want. It's not going to get you anywhere, and you're stuck here. I go home.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I go home. I'm not here to usurp your sources. I'm not here to do any of that because that doesn't serve me any good.
Yeah.
And it's a line from not Art of War, Man of War, that Nicolas Cage movie where he's an arms dealer. I used this line and it worked beautifully. And so the gentleman sitting across the table from me, he was the number 2. And I'm not going to say what country it was in, but he was the number 2. And he was sent because they didn't like my predecessor, a female that treated them like babies.
Sorry.
I didn't realize
the correlation to feminists right there.
I know. Yeah. She was a twat. I couldn't handle. I didn't. Of course, I didn't read any of this stuff when I was going out. I didn't get this information until I got on the ground, and my security guys were telling me how awful she was. Like, oh, she was awful because they all had to be in the meetings with us.
Yeah.
And so I go, I have my notes about how I'm going to approach the meeting, and that all went out the window when my security guys told me how I should really behave. And oh, fantastic. This is more my style anyway. And so I walk in there and I told him, I'm not going to take your sources. What good is it? This is not my first rodeo, yada, yada, yada. When I started going down this list, and then when I used the line from that Nicolas Cage movie, I said, I am not going to lecture you, because she lectured them about their smoking.
Yeah.
And so at the beginning of the meeting, he was blowing smoke towards me. Okay, I'll just take it. But then towards the end, the smoke started to go up. He started to blow it up towards the corner of the room. Okay, we're making progress. And then I said, I am not here to lecture you about what's going to kill you, in 10 years. When you can walk outside that door right now and you can be killed in 10 seconds. Not my line. It was Nicolas Cage line for that movie.
Well, it was a really good use.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure they didn't know where it came from.
No, they didn't. And he stopped and he put out the cigarette and he looked at me and he literally said, because there was an interpreter there too. So he refused to speak English. I thought he didn't speak English.
He did.
And then at the end he goes, "You I like."
Oh, wow. That's great.
And these are the bad guys.
I mean, the good.
Good and bad guys. Okay.
Yeah,
but you're just liaisoning between different countries that you're working.
They're military
deals with.
services.
Okay.
They're so when you're working with liaison, they're official military and intel services on the ground.
So you said something earlier, and I know we're going to get way deeper into this, that there's, and I hate that I have to even consider this, but there's good Muslims.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and the only reason we know that is because we are still alive.
okay, now we're
that.
Yeah, now we're getting into the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Because there are how many? I just looked this up before coming. 2 billion Muslims in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are just a little over 2 billion Christians.
Okay. Sure.
We're about neck and neck, and they are increasing. They have now caught up to us in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
They're increasing.
Mm-hmm.
It only took 19 hijackers to kill 3,000 of us.
Yeah.
Wow.
If every single Muslim was as hell-bent as the Islamists are, Christianity and everything that we know would cease to exist.
Okay, so I want to refer to something that I heard from an ex-Muslim who converted and became a follower of Christ, and he goes around doing speakings on this, and he said, if they're a good Muslim, they're not Islam, because Islam is inherently violent.
He would know more than I would.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I would say, based on what I've read and seen and experienced, yeah, absolutely. So we have to thank God every day that there are, quote, bad Muslims in their religion, but they're good Muslims for us. It depends on how you look at it.
Yo, that's a good, okay.
So when they say from the river to the sea, those are the bad Muslims talking about Israel.
Those are leftists, college students in NYU.
Leftists and college students in NYU.
We know all about those.
Yeah.
Well, I hear him now saying in every house. They want Islam in every household.
This is what imams are saying in mosque in Texas.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah,
okay.
and the imams are saying
it's nothing new.
Well, and they're also saying stuff.
Nick.
They're also saying stuff like we're gonna kill the infidel. Like they're gonna say that in the mosque. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is my point. When you say we're lucky because the bad quote unquote bad
but good
Muslims.
For us.
Well, no, the bad ones
Muslims.
to us.
Oh, right. The Islamists.
The
If you say Islamists, then I'll know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. The Al-Qaedas, the Hezbollahs, the Hamases of the world.
Basically the
Muslim
terrorists.
Brotherhood. Yeah.
So when the Islamists say they want to be in every American household, what they're really saying is what you just said. They want to destroy everything about our way of life, basically.
Yeah.
Then just destroy it.
Absolutely.
And have it gone.
Because that's what the Quran says to do.
What's that?
That's what the Quran says to do.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So the confusion,
their God has promised them that.
The confusion is if the Islamists are here in the U.S. saying that, but what about the quote unquote good Muslims for us, bad Muslims for Islam, are saying the exact same thing, and they're saying it here because we've had people come into our comment section, our DM, saying, "Oh, Bridget, you know Bridget." No, I think
Brigitte Gabriel?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, and someone sent me that story about how she was in Lebanon, and they, because we met a couple of Muslim guys. One of them's actually going to be on the pod. I haven't talked to you about that yet.
Okay.
And we thought they were the nicest guys. And then I put that experience out on our shorts and whatnot, and people came into our DM saying, "Don't trust that. This is what happened with Brigitte. Is it Brigitte?
Brigitte Gabriel.
Brigitte Gabriel, where she was in Lebanon, and they, thought Islamic people were the nicest people, brothers, sisters, nice neighbors. But then jihad came in, flicked a switch, and then someone got their head taken off.
Islamist came in. The Islamist proxy arm of Iran, which is Hezbollah, came in and set up a headquarters there where Brigitte Gabriel was raised in Lebanon.
Okay.
So it is still the Islamists, absolutely, that did this. And when people want to say, well, I didn't vote for Trump because of these wars and never-ending war. It's been, 6 weeks? Mm-hmm. And you think you're going to say it's a never-ending war after 6 weeks? Yeah. We had 20 years in Afghanistan. That was just completely a debacle.
Yep.
And then he's got 6 weeks, and we're already seeing some progress. The money that has, and then let's move over to the money, because the money that's been coming out of Iran, I didn't follow any money when I was in the agency. I didn't see it until I was working financial institutions, anti-money laundering investigations, terrorist financing.
Now we're getting into it.
Yeah, right? And so I didn't know.
Buckle up.
I mean, I'd read about money, the money pipelines and things like that, but that was always for the brains at Langley. I'm like, I don't know, I'll just write it up and just send it. I've got too many other things to do. I've got too many people to talk to. Now you fast forward to, I left mainly so I could raise a family. That's why I left.
Yeah.
And my husband, when we first started dating, he was completely and totally upfront with me. And he said, I don't want to live overseas. And this is like our second date. And I'm super glad he did.
Yeah.
Honesty. Absolute honesty.
Yeah.
And I already knew that there was something there with him. And I said, okay, I'll just keep talking to you at least. We'll see where it goes. And then, of course, just 3 months later, I was hooked. But I knew though, what he wanted, what he didn't want in life.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is great. Have those conversations early.
Yeah,
and I knew it. Now I'm armed with a decision to make.
We call that the Charlie Kirk way.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was armed with a decision. I said, okay, I've got the information. What decision am I going to make? And I chose family. And then I didn't realize just how much God was putting in front of me, because next thing I know, I got into Bank of America and I got onto the terrorist financing team.
Oh.
And I went, you've got to be kidding me.
Did you say the terrorist?
Financing
team?
Every
that?
Every financial institution has a team like that inside their AML program. AML is anti-money laundering. And you have to have an AML program. Regulators, it's all over the U.S., let alone the world, every single jurisdiction means country, every single country has an AML regulated program in their financial institutions. Now, whether they're up to snuff with us, with the UK, with, Prague or whatever, the EU and all that stuff, I don't know. It's a guess right now from the open source that's out there for when I do read and watch, but you have to have an AML program. And inside that program, almost every firm has decided to have a terrorist financing group.
Because you have
or whatever.
to, because it's so rampant across the entire world. So.
And our regulator in the United States is FinCEN. It's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network.
So, and just to give you some background, Nick, FinCEN is you have to register your LLC to FinCEN.
Your LLC?
Mm-hmm. Like that's something that happened under Biden.
Now?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you have to do it now, but under Biden, you had to register it with FinCEN.
Oh, I haven't done.
I don't think you have to do it now. And don't quote me on that. But
was
I remember under Biden, and it was kind of a power grab from what I understood.
Are you talking about beneficial ownership? Because beneficial ownership is you do need to report who the beneficial owner of your account is.
No. That's normal. That's normal to the registry whenever you do the LLC. Okay. No, this is after you've already created your LLC. You have to go to it and if my memory is correct, it was a FinCEN. You had to just register everything on FinCEN. Like it was an extra step that they had all that information anyway. Kind of like the IRS. The IRS knows how much you owe, but yet they make you file.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it was the same thing. Like they already had all this information, but they wanted you to register it anyway. It was really weird.
It is weird because I have one and I didn't register. I have a lawyer too, so
yeah. It was something about if you don't register it by a certain time, then you're gonna be paying a fine, a blah 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 after 90 days or after a year. But I think shortly after that all came into play was whenever Trump got reelected, and so I think Trump did away with it.
A corporate transparency.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was something for whenever Biden was in office that he wanted to keep. He wanted to basically know everything that your business was doing.
I will have to look into that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question, Aaron. I'm kind of curious. What can you explain what the science of counterterrorism actually is?
Financial terrorism or counter?
Well, you were
financial
on the
terrorism?
counterterrorism
Right.
team, and then I'm wondering if your experience on the counterterrorism team didn't pay off when you went into the banking industry and you were looking at terrorist
financial terrorist.
So, the question, the science behind counterterrorism, I couldn't even begin to break that down. But when you say how did it play into for the financial institution, that's a good question. So I know geopolitical risk, and that was the biggest thing I could learn from going from the intelligence world into the financial institution world. Geopolitical risk, for instance, Nigeria. Nigeria's got a lot of bordering countries, right? Nigeria has Boko Haram. So when you see transactions coming in from, say, Nigeria into certain accounts, and I know risk in general, not just geopolitical risk, I know risk in general, meaning, hey, is it too risky to go see my source? Then it's too risky to go. I go to my backup meeting for them, or I abort the meeting, that sort of thing. And then the risk is too high, that sort of thing. So risk is huge in financial institutions. I mean, it's literally what drives business decisions. It's what drives everything. And then you put on geopolitical risk. So you're watching these transactions come in. Actually, I'm going to talk to you about the car stuff.
Yeah. No, I knew that was going in that direction.
That's the example.
It's very, very fascinating.
So the one Nigeria example I have, I'll just finish it out so people aren't kind of hung there. The ADHD people are kind of, finish it. So with, say,
I know some of those.
Yeah. So for the Nigeria example, so you've got a lot of transactions that are coming from the north of Nigeria, because that's where Boko Haram normally operates, does their thing, right? And so you know for a fact that's going to be a hotbed. It's too high risk. So the Financial Action Task Force, which is a multi-jurisdictional, meaning multiple different countries, they assess risks for all financial institutions in the world, really. And they're kind of like, I like to compare them to Game of Thrones.
Here we go.
Yeah, right. And so the Financial Action Task Force is, the scene where Cersei is up on the stairs and she's naked and she has to walk down the mile. Shame.
Yeah.
The nun who is on Ted Lasso, by the way, she's awesome. But the nun is behind her with the bell saying shame. Mm-hmm. That's the Financial Action Task Force. In my mind, that's who I see the Financial Action Task Force.
The nun with the bell?
Yes. Shame, because they put jurisdictions, they can put banks and things like that on, mostly just jurisdictions, on these blacklists and gray lists. And then when you're on a blacklist or a gray list, people don't want to do trade with you. You don't want to do trade with you, less money's coming into your country.
As you ring in your bell,
exactly.
basically.
Shame. Gotcha. So that's how I always tell folks outside of the FI space, like, just picture the cloistered nun with shame. That's FATF. And so I don't know if they care if I say it that way, but
that's fun.
So that's
FATF?
FATF, that's how I pronounce it. And FATF, the Financial Action Task Force.
Oh, okay.
And they're an international body that will.
I'm going to ask you a lot whenever you say acronyms. I'm going to ask you what that means.
So they do risk assessments and audits of different jurisdictions around the world. And then those jurisdictions are run by their financial intelligence units. Our financial intelligence unit for the U.S. is FinCEN under the Treasury.
Okay.
So that's how that works. Each country has their own FIU, and then they report up their findings to an Egmont group. Egmont group will do public-private sharing, and then FATF will go in. They can actually start, go in there themselves and inside their own country and go, we want to audit. So they can do whatever they want.
Okay.
As long as the country lets them in. I don't see why they wouldn't. But that's a whole other thing here. So if FATF says that Nigeria is a high-risk area, we know that, right? We know Boko Haram is there, but we see transactions coming out and going into accounts of your customers. That's high risk. That's already flagged. That should not even be happening. We shouldn't be accepting that. But then you start looking and seeing the neighboring countries right next door. But all of a sudden, 6 months after a big terrorist attack, you're seeing transactions coming out of those border countries.
Yeah.
You know why? Because they've taken their operations, because there was a terrorist attack, or there's a lot of maybe military conflict going on, pushing them out. Well, they're just going to go across the border.
Wow.
And they're going to start sending money from across. So,
which is why secure borders are a thing.
Yep. Yes.
So, yeah, I was teaching my investigators I teach it anywhere I can, to say, you should look at the border areas. And then, of course, I always get the blank stare. This is way back when I was working at a financial institution. And I would get don't be so naive. It's a medium risk country. I don't have to report it. It's medium risk.
Wow.
And that's it. And I go, oh, God.
So what it comes down to is laziness.
Yeah, and a lack of training. And I train now, so that's good. But
when you say something like, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's low risk," I'm like, "What?" Yeah. That sounds like a lazy statement. Like, I just don't want to do the work.
And you just brought me into the next example I was going to give.
Okay.
Which is the Hezbollah used car lot.
She's great at transitioning.
Yeah, it's good, man.
Yeah, she's great at transitioning.
Yeah, we can learn
as
a little
worship
bit of
leader who had to transition from song to song without any kind of abruption. I really appreciate a good transition. So
good segue.
We could learn a little bit of segueing.
Yeah.
So the Hezbollah used car auto lot anti-money laundering scheme, it is still a huge thing, by the way. But I don't know now, because it's only been about 6 weeks or so.
Okay.
We don't know now, but in the coming months, we're going to see, I believe, less and less reports from financial institutions reporting that in their financial institutions in their accounts. So
this is what I told you about. I told you about it's a used car. It wasn't you, actually. It was the pastor I was talking to earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling him about the whole, like, they're smuggling stuff through used cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I saw when I was doing these investigations, I saw wires coming in from Cotonou, Benin, Africa. Cotonou, Benin. What the
Where
heck?
the heck is that?
Exactly. It's North Africa. And I'm going, all right, that's random.
It's North Africa, man. Come on.
North Africa. And so,
I didn't know where it was.
I'm kidding. I've never even heard of it.
near Nigeria. It's near Nigeria.
Yeah, it's near Nigeria.
Okay.
It's near. And so then I'm looking at all these accounts, and they've got some of them are newly opened, some of them been established, some of them it runs the gamut from individual to business to a couple $100 in to millions just opened. And so they would come in. I'm going, what is going on here? And they were almost all auto lots, big, medium, small, known, mom, pop, new and used, everything.
Oh, so you're saying this is including used car lots and new car lots?
Yep.
So new dealerships and okay.
Everything.
Now we're talking.
Everything.
Go ahead.
And the individuals that receive these large wires, they of course have names that you would assume. And I would look at them and go, okay, what does this mean? I didn't just go on the name alone. And I would look at, it's called KYC, know your customer. I would look at the address that this person has. And I would say, well, is there expected activity? What's the expected activity? Is there going to be a cash deposit every once in a while? Is there going to be a paycheck? So I open up my case and I'm looking through them. It's just all wires in. That's it.
Wow. Wires into
a person's account.
Okay.
And said person, and when I say this person, it's not just one account. This happened so many times. I can't even count how many. Almost for a solid year, I had multiple cases a day.
Wow.
A solid year.
What year was this?
This is way back in 2015, 14,
okay.
15.
Okay.
And I go, what is happening? And so I would see that these individuals would claim, mostly, not all, but they would claim that they're either in the financial industry or that they had a car lot, Sam's Auto Lot. But I can't find any record online of a Sam's Auto Lot. The address you gave us for the business goes back to an apartment in Yonkers. You're like,
sounds about what we're covering in Frisco and everything. So,
yeah. Oh, stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it was just driving me bonkers. And they're getting millions and millions and millions of dollars a day, a week. And then immediate transfers out, ACH, which is automated clearinghouse, which is your check card purchases, anything that you buy online, things like that. Automated clearinghouse, ACH, we're going straight out to more auto lots because they're getting cars from these Mannheim Auto Park or Pike or whatever it was, some auctions, auto auctions, and then shipping containers. There are addresses for shipping containers.
All right, let me see if we can make sure we're following this. So people who had said owner of car dealerships would get all these big transactions or wire transfers into their own bank accounts.
Yep.
And then they would use that money to purchase stuff at other car dealerships, auto auction.
Auto auction, yeah.
Auto auction, and they would also purchase the crates.
Yes. So here's the deal. They didn't own any auto lots. They were hawaladars.
What is that?
Hawaladar is the Islamic banking system. It's a trust-based banking system that you never heard of the Hawala system?
No, like that, and it's all making sense.
The Hawala system. So it's based on trust. So if I want to send money to Nick, and Nick is in Nigeria, and I'm in the U.S., but I know you that has the capability. You know somebody that lives near Nick. I just call you. I get your employed services, and I say you're a Hawaladar. I need to send money to my family member Nick in Nigeria. Oh, I got a guy. That's fine. And then you call up your guy that's sitting there in Nigeria waiting for your call. And he says, hey, I know this person. I need you to take out this much money. And then you front them the money. And then because of the money that you've gotten from that person.
Yeah.
It's all trust-based. And it's almost untraceable. Almost.
It's untraceable because of that trust element.
Yeah. It depends on what platform that they use too.
Are you talking about like when it comes to these kind of transfers, they're using, this is 2014, 15. So that there was Cash App, or not Cash App, there was Venmo, PayPal.
Yeah.
You know, so you're saying that they're transferring via these transfer platforms?
And if they would, sometimes they would send ACH. So that is transfer. I could find that. And it would just go to a random person in Nigeria or something. I'm like, what's happening here? But that's not what happened. In the Hawala system, you can use whatever platform you want. Islamic banking doesn't like the traditional financial institutions because of the fees that are involved. Apparently that's against Islam.
Sure. That's why they don't like them.
Yep.
Sure.
You shouldn't have fees.
No fees other than they can just track your every move. That's why they don't use
exactly.
them.
No
so
fees.
You doing your job probably caught on to a lot of money laundering schemes and all this fraudulent stuff. So word goes from you to where?
So that's, again, good question. So when I finish up my investigation of those cases, right, I write a report. And the report is called a SAR, a Suspicious Activity Report. And that goes, again, to the Treasury, which is FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. I always screwed that up because I always just say FinCEN.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, FinCEN. Okay.
FinCEN.
Yeah.
And they get that. And if you have, say, for instance, if we had a grand jury subpoena that I would work, or other kind of law enforcement requests that would come in, I'd have an agent name at the bottom of the request.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times I go, oh, I found more. And then I'd call up the agent straight from my desk there at the financial institution and go, there's a lot more here you're going to need to know about. But that's actually encouraged because I'm writing and covering the firm's butt by writing my SAR, and it goes straight along the rails that's made for all of us, for law enforcement, for the customer, and for the bank to be all protected, and that we're supposed to be reporting this kind of information.
Wow.
Okay.
So it's basically they're laundering or they're smuggling stuff. So what we've established is they have supposed ownership of these dealerships. They would receive transactions or receive transfers, and then they would take that money and buy other stuff at other dealerships, and also buy the shipping crates, and also buy auto auction. And then where is it going after that?
So let me just clarify. They didn't. They just said they had an auto lot just simply to say it so they can open an
They
account.
didn't actually have it.
Right.
It was like a Leering Center.
Yeah, exactly. For the bank. They just say, oh, I have this for the bank.
Yeah.
And so what they do is they actually went to the Toyotas of the world, the Suzukis, the Isuzus, the Kias, the Teslas, the actual legitimate companies. They did buy cars from the actual legitimate companies. Yes, these transfers went to them.
Okay.
Now, these companies haven't done anything wrong. And I'm not even trying to
They're just selling the
intimate
cars.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The mom and pop ones who are getting millions of dollars, I mean, maybe I wouldn't look at that. I don't know. But they're getting all this money for cars? Okay. Well, the mom and pop in Oklahoma is going, all right, I get all this money. You get your cars. What do I know? What do I care? Sort of thing. So Are they doing anything wrong? I don't know, because in 2011, a couple of car lots were raided by the DOJ about this particular money laundering scheme.
Okay.
So I do have to take... I'm not trying to pick on your watchers or viewers because I'm one of them, but someone wrote in your not DMs, but someone wrote
you can
comment.
absolutely reference it.
Oh
Yeah,
my
go
God.
ahead. Yeah.
Someone wrote, this happened, because you talked about the Toyota thing. And all that.
Yeah.
This happened in 2017. Be more relevant. Do you think for a second they stopped doing this?
Oh, gosh. We're gonna
They
have
did
you
it in
back.
2017, so it doesn't happen anymore. Get the fuck out of here. Oh, my God. I was so mad. I said, this is why I don't go online very much. I have to do this. But I gave you that example so that it can show, look, this is what they do. And if anyone thinks that they stopped doing it simply because it got out, word got out, oh, I can't do that anymore. No, they're doing it.
Yeah.
They're telling us they're doing it. It's been going on for a very, very long time, and they're not going to stop.
Go ahead and explain that story in very layman terms, because I think I've explained it to him before, but just so we can hear it from you, because she gave me like a detailed, like she wrote it all out so I could just put it into ChatGPT and put a script out. Yeah. But it was extensive. So go ahead.
It was from that exact same laundering scheme.
Mm-hmm.
No different. And so what happens now to finish up this scheme is the cars are purchased and they're put on these crates. The cars are filled with drugs and guns, and the cars go over to Kota Benin. There are plenty of sites out there that talk about the car graveyard of Kota Benin, because cars can get dropped off there mostly in this huge parking lot. And then the guns and the drugs get walked up, sold around the area, whether it's in Benin or whether it's in other areas, don't know. And then the cash goes to the pockets of Hezbollah and Beirut. And that's just one.
Yeah.
I've got more receipts of all the money.
Really? She brought receipts.
I brought receipts.
Oh, man.
But the example that I put out there, and you can continue right after this, the example I put out there is that there was this truck that a plumber.
Sorry, yeah. When I said that the cars go to this parking lot and stay there, not all of them stay there. Sometimes they'll take some and then, the war has to be fought and we need cars to drive them, right? And so they'll take some of these cars. Well, they didn't take the logo. Emblem, the logo of a local plumber somewhere here in Texas, of a plumber on the side, and they put a video out about it. I think it was some kind of terrorist recruiting video, and that poor guy, I think he got a lot of flack for it because
all he did was trade in his car.
That's it. He did nothing wrong.
He didn't do anything wrong. He traded in his vehicle.
The dealership didn't take the decal off and sold it. To some, oh my God!
Who knows if he sold it to the dealership? Who knows where he sold it to?
Yeah,
he could have sold it to a Hawaladar who was like, okay, fine, I'll take it. And I'll just put it on the shipping crates, and there you go. And it goes to Benin.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be interesting though if that's how they uncovered this whole scheme? They tracked a car because of its decal all the way from its American civilian owner to some place in
because they were just lazy to not take the decal off.
Yeah.
Well, the way I know that. This is a Hezbollah thing. I didn't know what was going on at first. I'm thinking Benin, in the U.S., cars, shipping. I couldn't put it together, but I knew something was here.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I realized, I should look up where the mobile banking logins are coming in from. Oh. And that said everything.
Okay.
Because the terrorist cell leaders were just checking their accounts just to make sure money was moving. They weren't moving any money.
They were just making sure it was there.
Just these IP addresses were pinging out of there. Constantly.
Wow.
And when I started running these IP addresses to see how many accounts were attached to them, oh my God. Houston, we have a problem.
Wow.
Horrible.
DC, we have a problem.
Yeah. And I called my boss in Charlotte and I said the same thing. I said, you're not going to believe this. And so he's like, oh God, every time you get on the phone, I always have to worry. So yes, we had a lot to worry about.
Because you find something.
Yeah.
And it usually, and I feel like you're the kind of person to where like you don't even really reach out to me unless you have something. You know what I mean? And I love it when I do get messages from her because I'm like, I've got content today and it's going to be good content.
Really? Yeah.
There's so much. But here, receipts. I'm just going to run down a list real quick.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
This is talking about money. And because of what this administration is doing now, could they be screwing it up? Sure. I don't know. I'm not in the war room. I have no idea. I don't have access to the intelligence that they do anymore at all.
Right.
But what I do have access to is what I've seen.
Okay.
So the cigarette smuggling along the East Coast, you should look that one up, Google it. The Hezbollah cigarette smuggling, anti-money laundering and fraud ring. That was big. That was busted up.
Cigarette smuggling. What would they be smuggling with cigarettes?
Just getting money.
It's using a product to launder money.
Yep, selling at a higher rate to get money.
Got it.
For Hezbollah.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
There's Visa, marriage, identity, credit card, and other frauds.
Wait. You just stumbled into something that we've been covering for a while, and you said Visa, and it's now attached to marriage. So fake visas via marriage?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They've been known for that.
Wow.
Diaspora fundraising and extortion. That just means throughout the regions that you're working in, you're going to extort people for money. That's
so all the scams that go on over the phone whenever they're trying to get money from you.
Any way and every way. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. There's donor transfers routed through Hezbollah finance officials. There's the informal shadow banking, which is the car kind of situation. So when you go into finance at a big car lot, that's kind of called a shadow banking. They'll give you, a loan, and then they'll give you a certain percentage. That's shadow. They're not a financial institution. They don't have deposit accounts.
Okay.
And so they'll give you a loan and you've got to pay it back at a certain percentage. It's usually higher than the banks. That's why we always go with the bank. And so we have complete control over it and all that stuff. And we have a customer service line and all that stuff.
So a question, you just read one that was called the something Hezbollah something. Was that the title of the entity?
Well, she's only read off 3, so
donor transfers routed through Hezbollah finance officials.
Hezbollah finance officials.
Yeah,
okay, so that
team.
wasn't the name of the entity.
No.
Okay, I was going to say that's a kind of a red flag to just call it Hezbollah.
No.
Okay, all right.
So trade-based money laundering is what we talked about. That's what they were doing with the cars.
Yeah.
That's called TBML in my industry. Trade-based money laundering. The used car, we just talked about that. Narcotics trafficking, obviously, because the ends justify the means. The commercial fronts and procurement businesses. South America has a lot of Lebanese presence, and there's a lot of businesses that are set up there. If you just walk around, you'll see the flag, Lebanese flag, Africa,
Really?
and South America.
Where's that?
In a bunch of different countries in South America.
Okay.
Yeah, they do a lot of training there. In fact, fun terrorist fact, in the early 80s, the Sunnis and Shias decided to put away their differences and meet in South America and train.
Oh my
The enemy
God.
of my enemy is my friend.
Mhm.
And they shared training tips. Like,
Okay,
Martha
wait.
Stewart.
You just said something. Who and who met?
The Sunnis and the Shias terrorist groups. A bunch of different ones.
They're like the Catholics and
And
the
the
Protestants of
Yeah.
Christianity.
So you're saying that these are the people, they're still of Islam.
Oh
Right,
yeah,
right.
like the Sunnis are Saudi Arabian and
Yep.
the Shia are Iran.
Right. And
Right,
so
and so
Sunnis
they-
are about 90% of the Islamic population, and Iran is 10%, the Shia.
Shia.
What?
And they kill each other. Like they don't like each other.
The split
Damn.
came when, after Muhammad's death, when there's a group of people, the council said the bloodline should be the next caliphate, the leader.
Okay.
And then this council said, no, we should vote.
Oh, one wanted democracy and the other one wanted
and that's where you
monarch.
get and
It's a split.
Yeah.
And so the
And
Shia,
then the poor Kurds are stuck in the middle somewhere.
the Shia, I remember this because the A in Shia helps me remember Ali was Muhammad's nephew, his nephew.
Oh,
And
that's interesting.
Ali Shia. So
Okay.
they believe that his bloodline should have been the next caliphate.
And that's the Shia.
Yes, and he
But
did
the majority Sunni believe it should have been voted on.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the 10% Shia is in Iran.
Iran. Yeah,
And wow. So it sounds like the 10% is really the worst of the worst.
yeah, and it's funny. So this is just hitting me now, by the way. This comparison I'm going to make.
Okay.
So Iran is only 10% Shia. They're less people, right?
Yeah.
But they're the loudest, and they reach further out, right?
Right.
Because they are surrounded by enemies on all sides, and they feel they have to protect themselves by being on the offensive.
Okay.
Who does that
Wow.
sound like?
Israel.
It does. Is that wrong?
I would say that is
Hmm.
not wrong. I believe in, well, that's a great question. That's
It
a
just
moral
hit me just
question.
now. It
Yeah.
just hit me just now.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
If we were surrounded like that, we would defend ourselves.
Exactly.
So, like, it's not
Exactly.
wrong for them to defend themselves.
Yes.
Not, and I'm talking about Israel, not Iran.
Right.
Right.
Like, I can understand if they're coming from the position of we want to defend ourselves, but Iran is not coming from that position.
Right.
They're coming from the position of conquering.
Yeah.
They've
Yes.
yelled death to America and shown it all over social media. So guess what? You've shown your cards.
And
Yeah, does evil have the right to defend itself? is
Right.
basically.
yeah,
Liberals will say they would. Yeah.
I have
course.
seen more from the IRGC when I was in Iraq than I can talk about here. And
Wow.
that's why people say, I can't believe we just got into this war. We're not starting a war.
Yeah.
We were literally bombed in southern Iraq, and it wasn't by the Israelis.
When was this?
Multiple times I was there.
Okay, this is when you were there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Multiple times.
I want to throw something
Wow.
out, and
Okay.
Nick, you can piggyback on this if you want. But I just got there's a movie that I love to watch, and sometimes when you watch movies,
K-pop.
stop.
Oh, my daughter will love you.
I've seen that movie like 10 times.
He loves K-pop.
it's a
I
great
it was a
movie.
good guess.
Yeah.
I was
It was a
guessing
good guess,
K-pop.
but we're talking about military and Islam here, dude. Like, read the room, all right? So there's a movie that I love to watch. He loves it too. It's a great movie. It's called The Covenant.
I have not seen it.
You need to watch that.
Okay.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh, The Covenant. Yes, I
Yeah.
recall.
Wonder.
It's a
Great
really good
movie.
story.
Yeah. And I just watched it again last night, or I started watching it again last night, and I turned it off in the middle of it. But one thing, this is my third time watching it. One thing that the main character said whenever he came up on some Taliban that were torturing somebody, and they, took out the Taliban that were torturing that person, or who they just got through torturing. So they were done, and they were looking over the footage because they recorded it. And then he took them out, and then he stood over them, and he said, "Animals."
Mhm.
Okay. Who else called them animals? Chris Kyle.
Chris Kyle. Yeah, it's all through his book.
Yeah, it's all through his
And
book.
any interview he's in.
And anytime we talk to someone who is overseas, a part of one of the organizations or in the military, it seems like they all have a common theme.
Yep. Thursday man love was a big thing when I was in Afghanistan.
Thursday man love.
Yep.
Do I even want to know what that? Is it what it sounds like?
I assume. So I learned about it when I was about to go meet a source, and it's dry there, and I have dry lips, and I have chapstick in my pocket. So before I'm about to get up, I got my notes and stand up, and I had some military females that were also intelligence officers as well. We shared a space, and I went to go past them. I said, "Bye, ladies. I'm going to go to my meeting." And they said, "What are you doing?" And it was just chapstick. That's it. And I walked past them. I said, "What does it matter? It's just chapstick. I mean, it's dry out here." And they said, "Don't you know the boys are for playing, women are for babies?"
Oh my God. Wait, I'm not following too much. Boys are for playing, women are for babies. Boys, yeah, I'm not following.
It's what we discussed the last episode.
That's what I was going to ask. So you watched the last episode.
I did.
And you're saying that what they said on the last episode is true?
Yep.
Wow.
That's the saying that we...
TikTok's going to say, "Oh, we don't like misinformation." Shut up, TikTok. This is straight from a government employee.
I was there. I saw... I mean, I didn't see them committing the crimes, but that was the colloquialism that was thrown around. And I look back now and I shiver. I
don't understand where that came from, you wearing chapstick.
Because they thought I was putting on lipstick to look better or something. And they said, "Why? Well, it's a point. You're not anything that they're going to want, because boys are for playing, not for girls. Girls are supposed to be breeding these jihadists." So
they have a really...
They're completely repressed. Like last week, I saw your guest talk about it. Spot on. They're so repressed that it's human nature to reach out for your fellow human, for human touch and things like that. Anything else is... I can't get behind, obviously.
I was shocked whenever they said that last time. I was extremely shocked. I'm like, I hadn't heard that
before. It's an oppressive society. Yeah. It's going to happen. Yeah. And speaking of another segue, you like this, right?
Yeah, here we go.
So the men that are in these countries, this is book time, right? So my friend Brig is a former FBI special agent, and he wrote this book. It is fantastic. Quick, easy read.
What's it called? The Dark Tragedy of Jihad.
The Dark Trajectory.
Sorry.
Of Jihad. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
And it is the most simple way of learning about the motivations of a military-aged male, how he grew up, what kind of oppressive society he's in, how the Quran speaks to him, and exactly what he might be feeling based on his overseas experience as well.
Wow.
So I'm always telling people about this book.
Available on Amazon,
I
I'm
believe,
assuming?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, Brig Barker, former FBI. He was also
Barker.
Brig, B-R-I-G.
Brig Barker.
Yeah.
Like thrown in the brig.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask, where does he live?
In the U.S.
Okay. Is he close to where he can come on the pod?
No.
Dang it.
But he might, when he's in Texas, he'll let me know. And if he is, then I'll
we'll make an emergency, not emergency, but we'll do a last minute episode.
Yeah.
If he's in town.
He was also the first FBI agent on the ground in Africa right after the Blood Diamonds story came out.
What?
Whoa.
He's got a good story on that one.
Wow.
He's got a couple of good stories.
Yeah, I definitely would love to talk to him.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Yeah. And we'll promote his book again too.
Cool.
Okay. So I want to point something out here, since we're talking about Islam and Christianity, mainly Islam, because we're talking about good Muslims and bad Muslims and whatever. Have you really considered that only Islam does terroristic things? Christianity never does terroristic things. That's a basic comparison. Islam is about doing terroristic things.
Right.
Christianity is not.
And someone can argue to say, no, of course they did, because of the Crusades and the things
thank you for bringing that up.
There were 9 of them, and they were answers to the Islamic aggression.
Exactly. They were a response.
They were responses.
Yep. It wasn't something they set out to do. It was because of what the Muslims were doing, and it was a response to that.
Exactly. And we did not learn about that in school at all.
No. I'm learning about that now.
Another book.
Here. Okay. Good. Oh, no. I think someone else has told me about this book.
What every American needs to know about the Quran.
Oh, yeah. Where have we seen that?
Someone else sent it to us. Someone else sent us, you need to read this.
Yes. Yeah. History of Islam and the United States. This one, he has in the back a comparison of Jesus versus Muhammad, and the difference is not in a bad way. He doesn't denigrate people. He doesn't have, you can't tell a bias. He just puts facts straight out.
Yeah.
Straight out
but
facts.
The facts themselves.
Yes. You don't need to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a comparison. Jesus, Muhammad. Muhammad.
Read a few.
Okay. My eyes are, these light.
You want me to read? Here, let's get Nick to read a few.
Yeah. Your voice is better than mine.
Oh, I don't know about that. But I'm not the best reader. So it just starts out, it says, Jesus did not permit his followers to lie. Muhammad obligated his followers to lie to spread Islam called taqiyya, sacred lying, holy deceit.
Yeah.
Jesus did not permit his followers to rape. My gosh, I'm going to have to really censor this.
Yeah, you are.
Muhammad permitted followers to rape infidel women taken in battle. Jesus never avenged insults, but forgave.
Yeah,
Muhammad.
Jesus stoned a woman to death for adultery.
No, he didn't.
I'm not Jesus. Muhammad stoned a woman to death for adultery.
Get that out of your mouth. He did not do that.
You're perfect. And to finish, Jesus said, "Go and sin no more." To the
he forgave him. Yeah,
I mean, there's differences. I could probably.
Let me read a few more. Jesus never avenged insults, but forgave. Muhammad avenged insults, ordering somebody I can't pronounce and his slave girls killed for mocking him in poems. One more. Jesus never tortured anyone. Muhammad had the chief of Khaybar tortured to get him to reveal the location of the tribe's treasure. So yeah, there's a few.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah, I need to get that book.
I'd be interested in reading that book. I actually just saw a video. It must have been based on that book because it goes through and just the difference between Muhammad
Can I take a picture
and
of that?
Jesus.
Of course.
Oh, afterwards.
Oh, afterwards?
Yeah, just so I want to do a video on that.
And then I don't want to lose time, or run out of time, because I want to get the last book. Which is, I should have done the first book, because this is a very close friend of mine. Her name is Cynthia Farahat. She wrote The Secret Apparatus, The Muslim Brotherhood's Industry of Death.
Oh.
She's amazing. She had to flee Egypt. She's here in the United States, and she does interviews. She doesn't live here in Texas, but if
she knew what I was going to ask.
Exactly. This is the go-to book for everything you need to know about the Muslim Brotherhood, how they got infiltrated into our government back in the 1920s, the communist realm of it, with the Nazis and communists and all that, with the Islam angle. She talks about the 1920s.
Okay.
How Hassan al-Banna started the Muslim Brotherhood and his take on communism and how that makes a play into this and how they were able to take a stronghold into the United States, which is what terrifies me about the communistic stronghold that we've got now in our schools. And it's why we left California.
Well, yeah, that, and plus it's happening in New York with Zohran Mamdani. And man, this is I'm sorry.
Well, one last thing about the Muslim Brotherhood in this book, she explains, which I hadn't really known quite before, is that every terrorist organization that exists today is because of the creation of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Interesting.
They've all splintered off. They all have different, you're not as extreme as we want you to be. You're not as extreme. And it always happens. The group ahead is never extreme enough.
Okay.
And that's a pattern that I've seen.
Do they have a time frame in which the Muslim Brotherhood was first established, or?
Yeah, the 1920s.
The 1920s. So they're saying that the reason that we have all of this terrorist activity is because of the Muslim Brotherhood that was established in the 1920s.
Oh, no, not because we don't have all the terrorist activity because of the Muslim Brotherhood. We have all that because of the teachings of
Muhammad.
Okay. That they've just put groups to it. Made it organized.
They organized it.
So the Muslim Brotherhood is the inspiration for Al Qaeda. Osama bin, I hate hearing my own voice in my ear. Osama bin Laden.
You get used to it.
Yeah, Osama bin Laden. One of his mentors was a teacher who helped form the Muslim Brotherhood. Was very big in it, and that influence really influenced him.
Yeah.
And speaking, I know not quite the segue that we wanted that I was so good at before, but because I'm on a roll, I
3 out of 4 ain't bad.
Yeah, I mentioned Israel earlier. So here, I give this presentation quite a bit when it comes to the road to 9/11 and Osama bin Laden and his 1995 fatwa.
Oh, here we go.
That was written by a British, I think something Al Arabi, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a British kind of Arab newspaper that published it.
Oh, okay.
Back in 95. And it went around the world. It really hit with a lot of Muslims and Islamists at the time. They weren't known as Islamists as we know them now, but they were there.
Yeah.
And so he ended up saying to everybody, take the proverbial and real guns that are pointed at Israel, and you should know who the real problem is. It's the U.S. Yes. And he said, if we can cut off the head of the Zionist snake.
Oh, my God.
So cut off the head of the Zionist snake is what is it's in the fatwa that says that. Proverbial and real guns and strategies were then starting to move to us. And that's why we see a lot more in the world today.
Wow.
A lot more terroristic activity towards the U.S. Marines in Lebanon, our U.S. lands and things like that, all around being targeted, is largely, not completely, but largely because of that 1995 fatwa. Now, can you imagine? Just think that you're an alien from overseas or outer space, and you see this little tiny Rhode Island country that has literally 13 to 15 million people. That's it. I'm talking about Israel, yes. And I'm talking about the strife within the Republican Party, yes. And I'm talking about influencers, yes, who talk about we shouldn't be and putting so much effort into the divide when it comes to support for Israel or non-support for Israel. I don't really care one way or the other where people fall on. However, have this as your information.
Yeah.
You're an influencer. You have a duty and a responsibility to make sure that you help your country, right?
Right. And Israel is an ally.
Israel is an ally. But if you take them off the table, they're going to be bored. And they're going to come after us a lot more. So doesn't that mean that militarily, if you're the president of the United States, don't you want that little island is acting like a huge shield and is a diversion?
Yeah.
Keep them there.
Yeah.
It just makes no sense to me why we're fighting so much in the Republican Party and saying things like online going, oh, it's the Jews. Okay, they're the size of Toronto.
Yeah.
I can't handle much more. I know. I texted you. I was like, I can't handle this anymore.
I totally agree.
And you can denigrate them and criticize them all you want. This is a great country. They take a lot of criticism. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm not saying we should give them a lot of money. I don't want that either. But just know right now, militarily speaking, the people who are so obsessed with this whole Israel thing, you're literally obsessed with the mosquito in front of you and swatting the mosquito away when that black bear is literally coming 50 miles an hour at you and you're going to get mauled.
Yeah. That is a great analogy. With that analogy, and before I ask my last question about the Islamic takeover of Texas, if you were in the woods, would you rather be in the woods by yourself with a black bear or with a man?
With a man.
We finally got a woman to admit it.
Got a woman.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Okay. So, and moving into the Texas Islamic takeover, because what you're saying, a lot of the theories that are out there, because we had 50 mosques go up in the last 2 years in just DFW alone. Could these potentially be storehouses?
For?
Armories,
for Islam to take over, because the 1991 internal memo that the FBI found for the Muslim Brotherhood is they're going to use organizations, they're going to use schools, they're going to, create more mosques, they're going to do all this stuff to infiltrate.
Right.
So even though we could say we saw, good Muslims, but it seems like they're here doing exactly what they said that they would do from that 1991 internal memo that the FBI found.
Yeah, and putting the dots together of what you learn, what you see, and the patterns, one could come to that conclusion.
Okay.
I know I'm sounding very politically correct right now.
No, you're fine. I'm sure you don't want to say something that's not accurate.
Right, and I don't have the intelligence either.
Exactly.
So I just know that.
We're just asking for your expertise of what you've seen and how you've worked these kind of situations.
I would imagine. I mean, Anwar al-Awlaki, who Obama hit in Yemen, I think he was in Yemen when he was hit, he was taken out. He was an influencer, an Islamic influencer, but overseas, and he influenced untold amounts of military-age males in the United States because of the internet.
Wow.
So now we have these buildings here, and people are coming in droves, right, via fraud, via everything, via legal, everything. And you want to say, okay, this one guy changed the minds and the hearts of how many military-age males in the United States? There's a young boy, he's not a young boy anymore. He was from Northern Virginia, and I can't remember his name, but he went to my alma mater, and that news broke around 2015. I think he was a junior or senior, or he had just graduated, one of the two. So it's an older story, but I do believe he is still in jail because he provided material support to ISIS terrorists based on money he was fundraising for them based on his videos of watching Anwar al-Awlaki.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
So he was supporting ISIS.
He wanted to fundraise for them based on the videos he watched, the propaganda he ingested.
I vaguely remember that story.
Okay, so the story is about the dangers of propaganda, especially propaganda coming from the left. Wow. Interesting.
Well, buying into what you call a religion that tells you to go and hurt and kill.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whatever that is.
Wow.
Yeah.
That poor kid's lost his life. He's in jail.
Okay.
Because he bought in. He drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I read more into the story because, again, he went to my high school in Virginia, so I felt very connected. And he threw his life away, and my heart ached. And I read more of it, and according to his parents, he had been a little isolated at school, maybe a little bully issue, stuff like that, and he just felt ripe for the picking.
Yeah.
But he's no different than so many other kids.
Yeah, so let me ask you, I heard this thing, this fact about the Quran the other day, not too long ago. I've been hearing it. And it strikes me as very ironic if it's true, and I don't know if it's true or not, having never
Nick,
read.
Can you pause?
Sure.
Hey, Michael, I think the cameras are stuck. Michael, you with us?
You awake?
Michael, you in there? Okay, I know it's still recording, but I don't know if it's going to go back and forth. It's working. Okay, go ahead, Mick.
It's working?
Yeah, it's just... I just see the light stuck on this one,
okay.
but it should
so
work.
it's stuck on the monitor.
Yeah.
Okay. So this fact about the Quran that I find very, very ironic, and that is in the Quran as it's originally written according to its text, and I don't know what that is, hardly any of it at all, having not read it. It talks about how it wants the religions to remain separate, at least in the early teachings of Muhammad, which I understand a little bit about abrogation and how the early teachings are kind of outdone by the later teachings. But in the early teachings, it's about how the religions, the God of the Jews is the God of the Jews, and the God of what other religion is their God, and Allah is our God, and something like one makes whole. In other words, it's defending the other gods and trying to separate peacefully between the religions. But no one in Islam knows that, because the imams don't teach that. The imams teach exactly the opposite of that. So
I don't remember that in the Quran. I've read it twice, but it's been a while, but I don't remember that.
You've read the Quran twice? You read the Karen twice?
The Karen.
So very much like Jefferson, he got himself a Quran because of the Barbary Coast pirates that were taking our people and enslaving them. And Jefferson had to learn, what does this book say? Because he got on a ship, he went over to Africa, and he said, we're not at war with you. Why are you taking our people and stealing them and putting them in slavery? And then the general, I think it was, or the president or whatever that country was, he said, well, because our book tells us to, commands us to.
That's right. Yeah.
He immediately sailed home, got that said book, and said, what the heck is going on? And he wrote about what he saw and his perspective and all that. Okay. And then fast forward to, I think it was Keith Ellison, is that his name, Minnesota, first congressman. And I could be wrong on what title he was, but he was sworn in on Jefferson's Quran. And he claimed that, our founding fathers had Islam written in.
What?
Yeah, because Jefferson had one. But he had one
to read
because
he was doing research.
Yes, exactly. I had to read this book, Steve Cole's Ghost Wars, before I could step foot in Afghanistan. My boss told me.
Okay.
Yeah, so you got to read this before you go. I said, yes, sir.
Wow. Man. Okay.
So you don't remember anything about that in the Quran, about how the religions and the gods are to be separate? And
I don't remember that. I could be wrong.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
One thing I do know, then you could probably confirm this, is that they acknowledge Jesus as a prophet, but they don't acknowledge him as God.
Right.
Okay,
and they believe that he's coming back to lead the world back to Islam. At the end of days, apocalyptic days.
I'm sorry, that's just so dumb.
Yeah, I've been told multiple times in Southeast Asia as well. I've been told multiple times that in our heart, everyone is born Islamic. Everyone.
Oh, that's kind of like gays saying everyone's born gay.
That's good.
So it's just illogical, as Spock would say, because it doesn't make any sense. Like you're okay when you can prove that Jesus not only walked the earth, performed his miracles, and then he also ascended, like he conquered death and ascended, and he fulfilled over 300 prophecies from the Old Testament. And then the Quran didn't come to us,
600 years later?
It was 600 years later, yeah. And so how in the world do people think that that's an actual authority to overcome Jesus, even though in Revelation it says, do not add to this book?
It's the only thing they've ever read.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Yeah. So you're talking about the brainwashing side of it.
Like furthermore, there was the story about Muhammad's adopted son from one of his wives.
And he took the wife.
Yeah. His name was Zayed. And he wanted Zayed's wife, his adopted son's wife, and so his people got upset with him because that's very, very close to interfamily relations.
Oh, incest.
Incest, right? Yeah. And so
kind of did away with adoption.
Muhammad comes back and says, I had a dream that Allah said that any man who lusts or wants his adopted son's wife may have her.
Wow.
As if men wanting their adopted son's wife was a big issue and a problem that Allah had to fix. So that's just how phony his writing of the Quran was.
Can I go back to one thing real quick and just sort of hammer home again a little bit the split that we've got in this country with influencers and the Republican Party. And I just want to say this again to I hate the word influencer. I'm too old for the word, but you know what I mean when I say it.
No, I am one. So yeah, I get it. Yeah.
There is a responsibility.
Yeah.
Because when you're going hard against the mosquito and getting everyone around you to focus on the mosquito, which will ultimately kill you because the bear is going to kill you, that's going to rile up your base. That's going to rile up and number one, have the morale of our forces on the ground is going to go down. Then your neighbors are going to go, oh, well, I didn't know that. Maybe I'm mad too. And then they're going to vote differently. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to change the votes around you. And then you're going to change the votes around the states around you. And then that administration is going to get out based on those votes. And now you've got worse in. Mm-hmm. Meaning, go back to what we were. We saw that happen under Biden when he gave the State Department full reign to exit Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. Really, do we want that again? Mm-hmm. I guess we do, because there's so many influencers who are screaming, Israel is bad. Oh, but the Jews. And that's where we're headed again, because these influencers on this side doing this are putting us right back into, say, a Biden withdrawal from Afghanistan type of situation, 4 years of COVID administration, 4 years of lock down your children with masks administration. And that's where we're headed. That's why I get angry. That's why I texted you. I said, I can't take this anymore. Because it's not that I'm like huge Israel this, Israel that. I'm just pragmatic. I'm looking at the numbers. I look at the patterns. I've lived in these countries and I can see it and go, wait a minute, hold on. This doesn't make sense, but that does and this doesn't. Why do you want us to go back to that? If you don't support your country and eliminating the terrorist threat, you will literally either, luckily, just wear a black thing over your head. And that's the least of your problems. Yeah. Or you're going to be dead. You're going to be beheaded. And I don't understand. I don't understand why we're doing this. I don't understand why there's such a rift. I don't understand why people want to just blast Israel. I can because of the propaganda. Yeah. There's so many things that Israel does. They're the only country in the world militarily who will drop leaflets to say, get out. We're going to bomb this building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Get out.
Yeah. Wow.
We don't want to hurt civilians.
Yeah.
Do they do it every time? I don't know.
And Islam doesn't do that.
Oh, God.
Oh, good Lord, no.
She's like, oh, God, no.
And they actually have the tunnels, underground tunnels, under hospitals and schools for a reason.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so they look like the bad. So we look like the bad guys, and they look, because we're, bombing hospitals.
I heard a story, not my story, but I heard a story of one of my security guys.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. It happened before I got there.
Yeah.
But, and again, I don't know if this is real, but this kind of made its rounds. But one of my security guys who protected me in Iraq said that it wasn't, I don't know if it was in Iraq, I can't remember, maybe another base, that apparently there's a lot of like S curves and things like that when you're coming in and out of these bases and war zones. It's for our protection in and out and to be able to control the flow. And sometimes you have to kind of go full speed ahead on a corridor, Death Valley or something like that. You call it corridor. But there's that particular one, that particular base had some civilians living around there. Apparently, I don't know if this is true. Apparently, there was a baby set out on the ground.
Oh, wow. Knowing
that the U.S. cars had to go literally shoot through because it's Sniper Alley. That's what it was. Sniper Alley, because these guys would get on the buildings and then snipe at the forces coming in and the cars coming in and out of that area. And if you put a kid there and a car goes by it and you film it, bad guys killed Islamic babies. Luckily, my friend said that he knew the guy or he did it or something. They put the brakes on real fast and literally broke armor, meaning they opened the car door and they're not supposed to do that. And he was so angry. He was a dad. And so he was so angry and he got out and he moved the kid and got back in. No sniper hit him. luckily by the grace of God, and he got in the car and it was just
wow.
That is sick.
So let me clarify this. You're saying that the terrorists over there they would basically put a kid in the street where it was Sniper Alley, and they wanted to film it in such a way it was being killed either by the snipers or the cars running over the baby.
not a sniper. The car would go over the baby, and so if you film it, then you would know that that's a U.S. or that's a Western.
So they would try to frame it of the U.S. killing babies
because the cars had to move fast to avoid being sniped.
Yep. Oh, that's why it's Sniper Alley. I got you.
Wow.
Okay. And then whenever he broke armor, which means opening the door, he shouldn't have done that because it's Sniper Alley.
Yep.
Got it. But he was so upset because it was a kid. And this all comes back to animals.
Animals. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But animals that are smart enough to move money around and employ tradecraft to keep them alive for a very long time.
Yeah.
They're not dumb.
No, I don't think they're unintelligent by any means. It's just this is what happens when people who are not surrendered to Jesus, in other words, they're fully in their pride. And I know this sounds like I'm talking lightly, but when you're fully in your pride and then you experience another power that's supernatural power, which I firmly believe that Allah is Satan. Like when you look at the correlation, that's where their power comes from. It's completely opposite of what Christianity is. And what's the opposite of Christianity? So when you think of that, but they experience some kind of supernatural power, and then they know that they can get that power here on earth, but they're doing it in the name of Ali, thinking that they can get all these virgins or whatever whenever they die, knowing and they're not knowing that they're being deceived, but they've experienced that supernatural power, so they want it more. You know what I mean? And so yeah,
and the ends justify the means. There's a story out in Baghdad years ago about them strapping a suicide bomb to a Down syndrome boy.
Oh my God.
And going into a market. I mean, that's not even the worst of it. I got another one I could tell you real fast that you might have to edit out.
One minute.
What is it?
A mayor of a town told me that his constituents were fed up because the local, they were called Al-Qaeda in Iraq at the time. They would kill these young kids, young as 4 sometimes, and they would gut out, and so that they could put in the explosives, and then they laid them on their side. And so that when the mothers and the fathers and all the family members come and see them and they start wailing and they start running towards the child and the first responders come, then they can go and take out more.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
That's what we're up against.
That is evil.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just pure evil. I have so many more words. We've got to end our time here, but I want to give you our litmus test. I'm pretty sure you've heard our litmus test, and it's going to be a very short answering.
I'm sure you're right.
Yeah. And it's so off topic of what we're talking about right now.
I know. It kind of brings it back home.
Yeah, it does. So when does life start? Conception.
And can I add to that a little bit?
Sure.
The very first, I used to be very left on that subject.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I was. Militantly so.
Okay.
And what changed me, I'm going to get a little emotional. What changed me was I was on a business trip and I came here to Texas from California. I came here to Texas and I was about 5 months pregnant, and I got in the car and I was going to my hotel for the next day's business meetings that I had. The very first time was here in Plano, Texas, that I felt my daughter move inside me.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, so that'd
do it.
Changed everything. I pulled off the side of the road. It was about 10 o'clock at night, and I just wept. I cried so hard.
So
it changed everything
switched from
militant.
Well, hang on. You switched from believing that abortion was okay to feeling the first movement from your baby inside the womb about five months, and then that changed your perspective of knowing the truth. Now you know that life starts at conception.
Something went through me. I just felt a chill, and I cried. I cried for about an hour, and my husband wasn't with me, so I had to tell him I felt her move, and he was crying on the phone. But
I love it. That's great. Okay. How many genders are there?
It's 2.
2. Speak up, girl.
There's 2. There's 2.
There's 2. All right. And what is a woman?
It is a human born with XX chromosomes, correct?
Yeah.
No one says the XX chromosomes. I mean, that right there.
No, he does.
Oh,
he does that often. Yeah. There was one time I was on TikTok Live and someone asked me the question, "What's your type?" And then I read that comment out loud, and then Nick's right behind me. We're working out together, and he's like, "Someone with XX chromosomes." And I was like, "That was the greatest response ever." So, Aaron, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
This is
Hope I
fun.
didn't scare
Very
you too much.
informative.
No, you basically just affirmed everything that we were already theorizing. And if there's any fear in it, I don't think there's any fear. The thing that we can reside and rest in is that Christ has already won. And all of this is what's happening is just the devil squirming because he knows he's about to be locked up for eternity.
Oops.
Now, it doesn't mean that we don't have a responsibility. We do have a responsibility. That's why the Crusades happen, because we have a responsibility to act, to protect, and we also have a responsibility to call out evil. And the great thing is that we have the ultimate power residing in us, so we don't have to fear that. Even if they are, got you on your knees and they're about to take your life by taking, the top of your body off, that means you're about to see glory, but also imagine what God can do with that specific incident. And I go back to the Muslims who made the construction workers get down on their knees to denounce Christ, and they wouldn't do it, so they took all their heads. Well, the story goes on from there. A couple of those Muslim Brotherhood guys came to know Christ because they were so distraught of what they did, and Jesus started, for lack of better terms, infiltrating their dreams.
Nice.
Called the Men in White.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, I love that story because it just shows you that, God doesn't need us, but he uses us. So
2 years ago this month, in fact, in 11 days, will be the 2-year anniversary of losing one of my closest friends to cancer. She was an atheist.
Oh.
She was, you don't talk about that stuff. She listened to other people.
Sure.
She was good about that.
Sure.
And she's just a wonderful, wonderful person. She was just amazing. She was in my wedding. I mean, you want to talk about a sister I never had. That was her.
Yeah.
And her last week, I was with her when she passed, and she talked about a man in the room with her. And the first day, she said she didn't want to die. She was whispering it because she didn't have much strength at all. And then by the third day, I was there for almost a week, but on the third day, that's when she starts talking about the man in the room. And I could hear her starting to whisper certain things. And then what really got me was that I happened to be sitting next to her, and she's in another world at this point on the morphine, and she was just a skeleton. And we were saying goodbye and everything, and she kind of turned to me and she whispered, "I'm so excited."
Oh,
wow.
So and I got a chill sitting there with her, hearing that. And then shortly after she passed, a bunch of weird things started happening to my phone.
Really?
Yep.
Like,
oh my gosh.
Apps were turning on that I didn't touch. And then about a week after she passed, a text went from my phone to her best friend in Missouri. Well, she's in Florida now, but they grew up together in Missouri, and we were together when she passed. And it happened at 8:45 in the morning. Well, I knew for a fact that morning I was in the shower. And there was a YouTube video that went to her. And so that night I sat down and said, I haven't talked to Amy in a while. I need to make sure she's doing okay. I'll check in with her. It's been a week. Open up my phone, and it's like, oh, she sent me a YouTube video. And so I watched the video, and I go, wait, she didn't send this. I sent this from my phone.
oh,
And then I text Amy, what's happening right now? Did you send this to me? And she said, no, you sent it to me. I couldn't understand why you sent it to me. And we couldn't figure out. There's a YouTube video on that I was in the shower for. And it was about mosquitoes and some child. It was an AI video about some child prodigy who made a mosquito repellent or something like that. And then she had written later that day saying, I didn't realize Zoe had told you that I was so deathly allergic to mosquitoes. And that's what hit me to go, oh, I got it. I don't know what she's talking about. I'm working right now. But then I sat down that night to say, how you doing? And then I went, what? What's happening right now? And we still, it just gives me chills.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing.
I talk too much. So anyway.
No, you're fine. I love this stuff. This is great. But we do have to end our time. Patriot Mobile, patriotmobile.com/NRP for a free month, or go to patriotmobile.com and enter the code NRP for a free month. Live Audio, LIVV Audio, not LIVE, LIVV Audio.com. Put in the code NRP for a 15% discount. Yes, I'm single. No, I'm not gay. Yes, I love Jesus. And then Dave's Vault.
Get your hat. It's a battle cry. Oh, and what are the books? The Secret Apparatus,
Yes.
Ghost Wars. What do we got?
That black one, yeah.
The Dark Trajectory of
Jihad.
and what every American should know about the Quran.
Yeah. Make sure you go get those books.
Yes.
They're available on Amazon.
Cool.
Go to our merch site, Nick's Right Podcast, merch.myshopify.com. We will get an actual domain at one point, but it's also in our highlights on Instagram. Lord Jesus, thank you. This was awesome. We know that we've just encountered and gotten a lot of information about something, things that are happening that are bad, that are evil. But one thing we can rest assured is that you are on the throne and that your will be done. But you commission us to go out and be fishers of men, to spread your gospel, the Great Commission. And I ask that when we even walk around, that you will shine through us and no one will see us, that they will see you and your love shining through. But let us not do it with timidity, but also with the spirit of power, which is your Holy Spirit. We thank you, Lord. Bless this video. Bless this podcast. May your name be praised. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.